Hello, everybody. One Fun Guy podcast. We are live in the studio today. My guest is going to be Athena. She is the Warrior Queen. Athena, I'm going to have you introduce yourself and we'll get into our conversation.
Fabulous. Well, it's nice to meet you. And hello, America, I should probably say, because we're on different time zones, aren't we?
We are.
What time is it over you where you are?
It is 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock.
2:02
Excellent.
p.m.
Ooh, excellent. It's 3 minutes past 8 p.m. And for all the other English people, and well, anyone in the UK that's listening, I should say, don't forget the TVLA are listening and watching. So we just had an additional tea time alarm go off. So it's a bit of a long threat to the kettle just
No, I
before we
love
went
it.
live. So yeah, that was not something that I foresaw, shall we
Yeah.
say.
So on a little tangent, one of the guys I follow on YouTube, his name is Adam Swords, and he's from the UK too. And
Yeah.
everywhere he goes, he always has a kettle with tea. So he'll
Yeah.
always make a tea. It's kind of a unique thing. He'll be out in the middle of the ocean on a jet ski, and he'll be like, "Oh, I'm gonna have some tea. It's tea time." So he'll make a little.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's fine. I mean, that is very true for a lot of us. We do have our brews quite often, but when the tea time goes off and you're in the middle of doing something or you're just
Right.
about to do something, it's rather annoying. You're like, gotta get to the kettle, gotta get to the
Yeah.
kettle,
And for us
But
ignorant Americans, do crumpets go with it? We always hear tea and crumpets.
on Sundays, of course,
Okay, sure.
only on
Okay.
Sundays, tea and crumpets on Sundays. I mean, it's a Sunday today, but it's
Right.
Mother's Day today, so it was slightly different. But
Sure.
absolutely.
Well, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers in the UK.
Yeah,
Ours is a
thank you
little
so
bit
much.
down the road. So,
Oh,
um,
really? When is it Mother's Day where you are?
I believe it's what is it? Is it two
Oh,
weeks from now or three? It's coming up, but it's not. Uh, I don't know the exact
you
date
don't know.
because Father's Day's in May. I know that for sure. I think April, like it's like 2 weeks before Easter. I think is when Mother's Day is this year.
Well,
So
that's soon then.
yeah,
Very
so it's
soon.
coming
You
up.
should check. You should
Yeah,
check. Don't forget to get your mother a card.
I get the alerts. Lucky for
Fair
the
enough.
cell phones, it reminds me of the. So
Dear, fair enough. But don't you be forgetting your mother now,
oh,
okay?
absolutely not. So we'll get into the conversation. We have some topics to go over.
Yeah,
Speaking from you being in the UK and me being in the United States, we obviously
yeah,
found each other on social media.
yeah.
I kind of wanted to get your take real quick on the importance of social media or the networking availability on it. Do you embrace it? Do you like it? Do you kind of find it frustrating? I know a lot of people have different takes on it.
Yeah.
What's your view of this?
It's mixed, to be honest. I sort
Sure,
of have
mine
like a
too. Mine
love-hate
too.
relationship with it.
Yes.
I mean, I know that the people who, usually sort of follow my social media channel have kind of noticed I've taken a back seat lately, the past sort of couple of months.
Yeah.
I did have to take that back seat. There was a lot of stuff that went on in very quick succession to each other. And I just hit that wall where I went, yeah, I need to stop going live. I need to stop posting. I need to just sort of get my head back together. And I think that that's important. I think many people forget to have a balanced approach to social media, and it's very easy for people to allow it to take over in some respects. And on the other side of the coin, it can be a very useful tool. It's one of those free tools that you can use to market businesses, bands, music, or even just yourself if you're working from home,
Mhm.
if you've got your own sort of thing coming up. So I think, like anything in life, you just have to find a balance, so to speak, find your way to and recognize when actually you're doing it a bit too much and take that step back.
Yeah, I agree. So obviously, I grew up in a non-social media world, right?
As do
This
I.
is very unique now to the people that are in probably, I would say, mid 30s and up. So if you
Yeah,
are 30 and under, you grew up in a social media world
I
where
didn't.
you were right. So I didn't, right? I social media did not exist in my youth. The internet
No,
didn't exist in my youth. So I
no.
find it very kind of confusing
Mm,
because kids at 14 and 15 today put their entire life on social media,
yeah,
and I find it like almost kind of a almost a security thing for me now, right? Like you want to put
yeah,
stuff out but you don't want to put too much out there, and
yeah.
I find that median is very hard to navigate from what
Mm,
you want people to know about you and what they can find out about you versus what you're trying to do obviously
Mm.
with myself having a podcast and trying to get people on it, I have to network, and social
Yeah.
media is the best way to do that.
Mm.
However, I don't want to find myself in that web of social media where like I'm constantly checking it every couple seconds and like I have to kind of just step away. But
Mm.
I I don't find that balance yet. And I'm very, very good about reaching out to people and getting back to people.
Yeah.
But my approach is very different. Like I don't put a lot of stuff up. Like I don't know.
Mm.
I'm still trying to navigate it. Obviously, it's a different, universe now with it.
It is. I very much agree with that. I mean, I'm 35. I'll be 36 soon, and I still remember the days of, when dial-up internet happened, and
Yeah.
you couldn't use the phone and the internet at the same time.
Right.
You still regularly hear that. Get off the internet. You need to use the phone. So it is a very, very difficult world now than it was. And yeah, I do share your thoughts on that. There are definitely been many times over the years where I've gone, oh, I don't want it anymore, and I've wiped everything and I've got rid of everything. And I very really nearly got rid of absolutely everything again this year, and then I kind of stopped myself. I got rid of one thing, and then I went, you know what, I'm getting really overly emotional about this because of everything that's been going on.
Sure.
I need to take that step back for that reason as well, and really think logically about what exactly do I want. And I kind of realized after a couple of weeks that I'd been burning myself out, and I think it was running on fumes essentially, which is not very good. And
Right.
since I've taken that step back, I've been able to apply more into my studies. I've been able to sort of analyze music a little bit better. I've been able to sort of, take a little bit better care of certain areas that I was struggling with before. So I do think in many areas it was needed to take that step back, and reflect upon, long term wise, what exactly I'm going to be doing the rest of the
Right.
year. So yeah, it's very difficult to find that balance, but I think you'll get there, as long as you have that in your mind and you sit there and
Yeah.
you go, okay, well, this is what I need to make, say, my business, my podcast grow. I'll do this, but I'm going to set aside time to not post. I'm going to
Mm,
make sure I have boundaries about what I will and what not talk about
sure.
online. And they are a good guiding point, I feel, to use
Yeah.
as a balance.
Absolutely. I find that too. And also becoming a public figure is not easy, right? Because
Mm.
I went from having no social media to basically having every social media. The only thing I'm not on as a platform now is X.
Mm.
And I find it that like becoming a public figure, you
Mm.
give access to people that normally wouldn't have access to you.
Yeah.
So there is kind of that, mask of privacy that you still want to have. But at the same time, if you don't put yourself out there, people aren't going to see you.
Yeah.
So becoming a public figure is a very, very unique thing because
Mm.
you have people that have access to you that didn't have it before. And I've embraced it pretty well, but it's
Mm.
very difficult when you start getting, a plethora of emails and messages and DMs, and you're trying
Mm.
to find time to answer everybody back in a timely manner. And then you just kind of get lost in it. And
Yeah.
that's my thing, is finding that balance. And I'm getting better at it, but I still
Yeah.
have a long ways to go.
Absolutely. And that's completely understandable. And you will get there one day at a time. That's just important to sort of keep those things in your mind,
Yeah.
and you'll do fine then.
And I feel it's such a good networking tool, right? Because had I not
Mm.
had it, I would have never met you, and I probably wouldn't have met the likes of about 90% of the people I've had on my podcast. So for me, doing finding new people on social media is like what I'm doing now, right? So I always tell people, if you know anybody that wants to be a guest or you want to be a guest on my podcast, please let me know, because I'm open to having a conversation with you about doing that. So for
Yeah.
me, it's a very, very necessity of a tool to have of
Yeah.
of navigating social media, because if you don't find people to be in your world and bring them in, you're not going to be able to use it. And so for me, TikTok especially is a fantastic networking tool. So I
Mm.
use it for that, but again, it's also very dangerous because you fall into that web of, what do I need to do to get the algorithm to back me, right? and
Yeah.
it's and obviously the more time you invest in it, the more time it invests in you. I just don't have that much time to invest in it. And that's the thing
Mm.
that, like, I know what I need to do, but at the
Mm.
same time, I don't want it to consume me. And I feel a lot of people have been consumed by it. Like they feel they have to do it, and they
Mm.
use it almost like a second job they dedicate that much time to it, where you're putting in
Mm.
40, 50 hours a week in social media, which
Yeah.
I'm nowhere near that.
No, no, and that's understandable. And people do go to the other extremes where they allow it to impact relationships, whereas I don't know, it could be their relationship with their children or their parents or their partner,
Right.
and that I think is also a dangerous line to be had. And instead of allowing themselves to sit with their feelings as well, they distract themselves
Sure.
with you know with their devices basically. And I've seen it happen where some people have, I don't know, had bad internet for a couple of weeks, or they, for whatever reason, they've not been able to use their social media because they've been locked out or whatever. And it's really quite alarming in some cases how it affects them. That as soon as they have to sit with their feelings and really think about, oh my gosh, I've known this person for so long, I really like them, or oh my gosh, actually there's this thing that I'm afraid of. And instead of addressing that and actually communicating that with people and going, right, okay, what do I need to do? What do we need to do to work through this? They shut down, they throw people away, they go no contact, they do all sorts of these different things because they'd rather do that than really address what it is that they're feeling.
Sure.
And there was a program on quite recently on Channel 4 where they actually had a look at people who, it was predominantly children, teenagers, but also some adults participated in this experiment as well. They went without their phones and social media for 3 weeks. And scientists really looked at their neuroactivity in their brain before, during, and afterwards to really see how much it impacts everyone of all ages. And the results were really quite shocking, to be honest.
Sure.
And it really hit home that you need to
Right.
think about
And it
it.
is a tool though, right? Like it's so
Yeah,
easy. If somebody asks you a question and you don't know the answer, you go
yeah,
right to
just
Google
Google.
and you
Yeah.
type it in, right? So like you can't get caught off on something, right? So it is a tool that way. But it's also, I find it to be, especially your phone, right? It's an integral
Mm,
part of your life now. It's not only a
yeah,
phone, it's your clock,
it's
it's your
everything.
calendar, it's your network, it's your, you know, without it, you pretty much, I don't know if I'd be able to go a
Lost.
day without it, right? So
It is really
I'm that
difficult because
dependent
it's
on it.
it's also a banking data, like my
Sure.
emails from schools, everything comes through that.
Right.
But I mean, I'm still kind of old school in some ways, because I was having a chat with someone a few weeks back, and he was saying that he really wanted to invite his girlfriend to a gig. He does do gigs a lot, and his girlfriend has never been to a gig in her whole entire life, right? And he was saying, I don't think I want to like bring her to a massive one to start with. I think it'll be too overwhelming. And I said, I agree. My suggestion would be take her to something that's local, something quite small, and just sort of go from
Sure.
there. And I said, whereabouts are you? And he goes, oh, I'm from Ipswich and she's in Kent. And I go, okay, I know nothing about Ipswich, but I do know that Metal to the Masses is playing in Kent. So if you were to have a little look at Metal to the Masses Kent, I'm sure things will come up that will allow you to see, where it's playing and how much it is, and where to find them and all the dates and so on and so forth. And he was like, yeah, I'll do that. And who's playing? And I should have just reiterated that at that point, go, have a look and you'll find out.
Right.
But I was trying to be helpful and old school and rely on my memory. So I'm in my head trying to think about all the bands that are playing and when are they playing and where are they playing, which is a lot of information to try and recall. And then I made mistake number one here because I went, Heavy Miss Driver, they're playing in Kent. It's not Heavy Miss Driver, it's Heavy Mass Driver. I
Right.
changed one letter and then suddenly it was a very different band. And then I sort of corrected myself, went, no, it's Heavy Mass Driver, so sorry. And he had a bit of a laugh and it was all fine. And then he goes, oh, actually, there's a thought. Are there any metal bands playing that are women? Because if I can mention one of them, maybe she'll be more inclined to go because it's a band with women in it. And oh my gosh, this is where I made mistake number two, because that would have been a really great time to talk about Cherry Dead because they are also Metal to the Masses. I'm not sure if they were playing in Kent or not, but they're this all women metal band that are phenomenal. Like Kira on the drums is just amazing. And my brain at that point did not think about that at all. I not only could I not think Cherry Dead, I couldn't think of any metal bands at all, not just Metal to the Masses, any band at all
Right.
with women. I am screaming in my head trying to think as like any metal band at all, and I'm just sat there going Pulse, no, Stone Soup, Bleed from Within. The 500. We like the 500 talk. No, okay. Can we stop thinking about men for just 1 minute, please? And it didn't work. I'm
Right.
sat there going, seriously, brain, I tell you to specifically think of women, and it goes, no, no, I'm going to keep making you picture men, but I'll change their
Right.
outfits for you. Okay, how about that? Because all of a sudden now I'm imagining Stone Soup in frilly dresses and the 500 in sequins, and you know, Stephen from Bleed from Within was decked out in feather boas, and I'm just sat there going, this is in no way helpful. So in
Right.
the end, I'm just sat there going, oh, I'm so sorry. You could pretend some of them are women.
Right.
Like I don't, like I couldn't think at all, and so I'm just like, oh, Ben, if you're listening here and you still want some, you know, metal bands that are women, go for Cherry Dead because they are legitimately amazing. Okay, don't know if he is listening, but if you are listening to them at some point, go for Cherry Dead because I genuinely they are incredible. But yeah, my brain just was not thinking at all,
Sure.
and now I look at it and I think I could have googled that, I could have gone on my phone, I could have opened
Right.
Spotify and gone, oh yes, yes, these guys, go for these guys, and I just yeah. I didn't think that at all. But, you know, it makes for a funny story, I guess.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, what is Metal for the Masses? You mentioned that. Is that like a venue type thing, or is that like a concert, or is that what?
It's a competition. It's
Okay.
been running since the 18th of January. We're actually gearing up for the quarterfinals. There's a band actually. There's a gig playing tonight in London actually. There's three different bands that are sort of competing for a chance to be in the quarterfinals. So it's yeah, it's amping up a lot. And
Okay.
the overall winner gets to play at Bloodstock in August. So it's really
Nice.
exciting.
Well,
And I don't know who I'm going to vote for, I'll be honest with you. Initially, I thought, yeah, it's fine. I know who I'm going to vote for. And now the more bands I listen to, the more I'm sat there going, okay, I don't know. I'm legitimately stumped.
right.
So I'd like to hear your thoughts if possible, because I know that last time you and I spoke, I mentioned a band called From Tyranny.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've had a chance to listen to them yet, but what
I
are your
am.
thoughts
They're
on them?
awesome, and I like I said, I'm a huge hardcore, like heavy metal fan, and I really like them. I tagged them in a video that I just did. Now,
Oh,
they
really?
have they have a great sound. They're super heavy, and yeah, I dig them a lot. So, they're
Oh, that's
they're
fantastic. What do
they're
you think
very cool.
your favorite song by them is? Do you have a favorite yet?
So the new one they just released is the one that I did. I know it's a hardcore song. I
Yeah.
can't remember the title, but it
Blood
was their
Warden. That's the
yes,
new one. Came out on
that's
Friday.
their newest one, and that's the one I used in the video that I just tagged. So yeah, they are a
Oh,
very good solid band. I like them a lot.
oh, good. That's fine. I'll have to check that out then. So that's really good to see. I mean, my favorite one, personally, by From Tyranny, would be Haunt You. That's got to be my favorite. And I know it's not the most popular, and I completely get that. But what I usually find, it's not just with metalcore as well. I mean, all across all genres, I kind of see this or hear this, I should say. It's music.
Right.
But what you'll find is a particular emphasis on, say, a certain instrument or a certain avenue of the song. So you'll find there might be a particular focus on, say, the vocals or the guitar. And that's not, there's no right or wrong to it. You know, if it's a good song, it's a good song. But what I like about Haunt You is that you can actually feel that not only are all of the team members sort of working together, but they complement each other really well.
Yeah.
So, like the vocals will sort of bleed into the riffs, and then the riffs will sort of lean into the drums, and then the drums will sort of feed back into the vocals, and it ebbs and flows really well. I almost cried the first time I heard that song. It really is so good. And I know it's not the most popular. I know people are going to be sat there going, "Oh no, I don't think you should do that." What about Elemental, for example? But that personally, that's my favorite. If you haven't heard that one yet, I do highly
Yeah.
recommend you listen to it.
Yeah, and it's so unique because I know we talked before about the history of
Yeah.
music coming out of the UK, right? Obviously,
Mm,
you had the British movement with the Beatles was obviously the first one that
mm,
kind of landed in the US and blew up everything, right? And
yeah.
then, from there it went into, Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin, and then obviously Queen is
Mm,
probably the most notorious one. And then in the punk scene, you had the Sex Pistols, right?
yeah.
They had Anarchy in the UK. That was kind of the big one. That was, but UK in far of, like I know a lot of especially metal bands, it
Yeah.
always goes back to the Eastern European countries and the Northern European countries, right? Your Swedens, your Norways, your
Yeah.
Denmarks, your like they seem to be the focus of it. But the
Mm,
UK always seems to get kind of like left behind when you talk about like the heavy metal scene, right? It
Mm.
always kind of goes back to the US, obviously, because we had the Bay Area, your Metallicas, your Testaments, your Megadeths, and that kind of scene there. And then you had the Florida death metal scene, which was, you know, your Morbid Angels, your Obituaries, your Deicides, and stuff like that. They all kind of came out of the Tampa Bay area. But
Yeah.
the UK seems to always just be forgotten in terms of like the metal scene. But when you think about it, like Sabbath started it, and and
Yeah.
and, and they were a UK band, and then, you know, and it's like now it seems to be kind of always, you know, forgotten about. But then you mentioned bands, you know, like Bleed Within and From Tyranny that are, you know, based in the UK, and it's like it's good to see the resurgence of that, like they're putting it back on the map again, which I think, you know, and obviously another one was Iron Maiden, right? Like they were the
Yeah.
the big ones, right? Like they always had the Union Jack flying around on stage.
Oh, absolutely. And I do think Bleed from Within is certainly one to watch. I mean, they've recently toured with Slipknot, and they have some incredible music. They've got a new album that's coming out next week, which I'm really quite excited about personally. And I'm sorry, Stephen, for saying I pictured you in a feather boa, but you looked brilliant. So just
Hey,
kind of
you know
realized
what?
I
Some rock
mentioned that
stars
earlier.
like that, right? You know, you got to
So
have the T-Rexes of the world, right? The Mark Bolan's wearing the big bola, right, on stage, and the New York Dolls made that famous, right? So
yeah.
it's all right. It happens.
To be fair, they seem like perfectly nice guys, and I can kind of imagine them doing that just for a laugh, to
Yeah.
be honest. So, you know what? It's fine. But yeah, you did all look brilliant in my head, I promise.
So now that you said, I know you mentioned the Metal for the Masses is kind of like the precursor to being on Bloodstock.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about Bloodstock. I know it's a big a festival in the UK. Give us a
Hmm.
little bit about it. Like, tell us about it, because the fans, like some of my fans, know that obviously I like heavy metal and hard rock music, but they
Yeah.
wouldn't know if I said Bloodstock. You know, they might understand Ozfest because it was a big one in the United States,
Yeah.
and you know they don't understand Wacken and they don't understand the other ones. But give us a
Mm.
little insight into Bloodstock.
So Bloodstock has been going around for over 20 years now. It started in 2001, and it was this really small sort of festival when it began. There were only sort of two stages. It was an indoor event. And then over the years, it's just expanded, and now thousands of people turn up at Bloodstock every single year. There's multiple stages. In memory of Sophie Lancaster, one of their main stages is named after her. She was a girl that was murdered back when I was in college. So I was 18, she was 20. I didn't really know her personally, but it was really horrible. There was a bunch of people that murdered her and attempted to murder her boyfriend because of how they were dressed. It was absolutely a horrendous case.
Sure.
And you know, Bloodstock have worked well, and numerous other places as well, like Rabbit Fest, and many other people actually do what they can to sort of ensure that her memory is kept alive and raise awareness as well for the Sophie Lancaster Foundation, like her that her parents run, and to sort of make sure that we stamp out any kind of prejudice and any kind of, you know, hate for people just because the way they're dressed, which obviously is, to me, I think is important for all of us to remember that
Hmm.
personally. But yeah, I'm actually going to be working Bloodstock this year, which is really exciting, if a
Sure.
nerve-wracking, because I'm doing a course in event planning, so I should be wrapping that up at sort of end of May,
Okay.
beginning of June. But part of that is obviously I have to go and work behind the scenes of different events and sort of figure out, you know, how is it set up, and you know, how do you navigate and organize it. And it's fun. I Certain parts of writing have been boring. I'm not gonna lie. Like there's bits of studying that are not, you know, not fun. I've had to do a lot of contingency plans this week, and
Sure.
that's really not fun to have to write about. I ended up having to do a piece. They asked a question on if something happened that required the intervention of medical services, and because I had to write all about Bloodstock, I was sat there going, okay, so something that requires that. Or I could think of either excessive drinking, because if the
Right.
light bulb in the sky is on and generating heat, people are going to get dehydrated and they're going to drink
Sure.
alcohol. And the only other thing I could think of is like if they were moshing and they maintained an injury, and then I had to write this contingency plan about it, and I go, great, I've just made moshing dull. I'm
Right.
like, I never thought that could happen, but I've just spent like 20 minutes writing this contingency plan on how to prevent injuries while moshing and what to do if an injury does occur. And by
Sure.
the end of it, I've just sat there going, oh my gosh, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I
No,
never
it's
thought having to write about this would be dull, but this was, yeah, this was really something.
yeah. It's funny because when most people hear about a festival,
Yeah.
all they do is focus on the bands that are
Mm.
there. But like you said, it's setting up the stage,
Yeah.
having manpower building all this stuff, engineers setting up lighting, sound guys
Absolutely.
setting up the soundboard,
And the rigging, you
electricians
know?
running the
Yeah.
wires, right? And then before it starts, you have to have, like in the United States, you have to have the fire marshal come out and make sure that everything is
Mm.
secure, that there's
Yeah.
no exposed wires, that nobody can just run up and unplug something, and that
Yeah.
everything's taped and everything's hidden. So there's a lot that goes in to setting up a festival, just
Mm.
besides the 20 bands that are going to play in the 2 days on the weekend, right?
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of setup that more behind the scenes than the rock stars doing their thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's a big thing, and I think a lot of people don't really understand that, right? Just hiring a security team to make sure that people's bags are being checked and they're not bringing in any weapons, right? They're not doing
Yeah.
anything that's going to be in danger. To the lighting guys and the soundboard guys, right? Because when the band takes the stage, you want them to sound their best, but it
Yeah.
probably takes thousands of people to make that happen.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I don't know about you, but if you can't see or hear the performer, it's not going to be as fun,
Right.
is it? Because you need
Yeah.
to be able to see them and hear them in order to be able to enjoy the festival. I mean, Bloodstock this year hasn't even happened yet, and Bloodstock 2026 is already being planned ahead. You know,
Sure.
you have to plan
Right.
for something like this a good year and a half to 2 years in advance. I've just written about that. So I've had to write a timeline. So yeah, there's so much that goes on behind the
Right.
scenes that a lot of people just do forget about. And don't get me wrong, there are many people that just want to go there and have fun and have a good time, and that's
Yeah.
absolutely valid as well. But yeah, it's not just a very quick thing. There's a lot of things that go into it and a lot of people that go into it as well. Many of whom, will not even be known about. There are a team of people who handle all the boring health and safety stuff, for
Yeah. No.
example, and,
No.
and security and all of this stuff, which is very much needed in order to make sure that it's not only fun but very safe
Yeah.
for everyone, to make sure everyone has a good experience. So yeah, it'll be an opportunity where I can learn a lot, I think, and
Yeah.
I'm
And
looking
there's,
forward to it.
I don't know if you saw, but there was a big thing on Netflix about Woodstock 99 and all
Oh
the
yes.
problems that they had, right? Between the field burning, right? When they set the boards on fire and
Yeah.
they ran out of water. They were charging like $15 or $16 for a bottle of water, and
Yeah.
people, they didn't have bathrooms, right? So they ran out of space and they ran out of
Mm,
everything, and there
mm,
was no way to fix it at that time.
yeah.
So just like all hell broke loose and it was chaos. But if they would have had event planners and coordinators, that wouldn't have happened. But they just, there was an overabundance of people that showed up. And instead of saying no, they just broke down the fence. So they all were basically got in, and they were all
Mm.
being pushed up towards the front of the stage, and it was just a mess. So yeah, so that kind of gives insight into what could possibly happen. But I've never experienced that. Every festival I've ever been to has gone out without a hitch. I've met a lot of cool bands. I got behind the scenes. I did a lot of stuff. So everything in my experience has always been great, and I'm sure this will be too.
Well, yeah, I imagine it will be. I mean, like I said, this has been going on for over 20 years, and although this is going to be my first experience of it, everyone I've spoken to as of late has all said some really positive things about it. And
Sure.
what's really weird is that the day that I got the offer was like a poignant day for me, and I was not feeling very happy at all. It was like I woke up trying to distract myself because I
Right.
was feeling really upset, and then I got that email, and I remember just thinking at the time, like, of all the days to get this news and this offer, and of all of the places to offer me a role, is Bloodstock. And I had that moment, I don't know if you've ever had that, where you kind of sort of say to the universe, do I do this? Do I still go through this? Because a lot has happened in the last couple of months.
Right.
Do I still do I accept this? And then the postman turned up not long after I got that email with some secondhand clothes that I'd ordered, and I opened it up, and one of those clothing was this pink t-shirt. There was a Sophie Lancaster t-shirt, and then I opened it up, and underneath Sophie's name, it said Bloodstock on it. It was an old Bloodstock t-shirt
Okay.
that I got the same day I got the offer to work for Bloodstock, and I remember just sat there going, well, okay then, universe, you clearly have a
Yep.
plan.
It
I'm clearly
found you,
going to
right?
Bloody Star.
That's it.
It was just weird. And then I had people that I haven't spoken to in, say, over a year randomly get back in contact with me. And at this point, I hadn't mentioned to anyone I'd had this offer. I hadn't mentioned anyone that this had happened. And then they happened to mention that they'd been to Bloodstock before, and I had, and then I spoke with you, and you were like big into metal, and let's arrange this podcast, and wanted to talk about all these things, and it was just really weird. It was that I had a good couple of weeks where
Right.
so many conversations ended up being Bloodstock or metal music, and I'm just sat there going, okay, I get it. I heard you loud and clear. This is clearly what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right.
I'll go. And then I obviously heard that from the course that I'm doing, that I didn't have to pay anything for it. That I was actually one of the lucky ones granted from the government to be able to do this full on course without being charged any money. I'm just sat
Sure.
there going, oh my gosh, this is incredible. Like, and everything is coming together. Like my first assignment was on Bloodstock, which is
Right.
it's just okay. It's yeah. So fair enough. Hear you loud and clear. That's what I'm doing then this year.
So before Bloodstock opened its opportunity to you,
Hmm.
were you like were you into like hard rock and heavy metal, or is this kind of like an experience to you, or have you been familiar with these bands, or like is this a whole new world for you now?
No, I mean certain aspects of it, sure. I mean, because of Metal to the Masses, this is my first year really sort of analysing Metal to the Masses. That was sort of
Okay.
introduced to me last year, but I've always been off and on with all genres of music. I
Sure.
mean, I had the Slipknot album when I was 13,
Right.
which is weird to think about now because I'm almost 36,
Yeah.
and I'm just out there going, oh, okay, So I've always had certain metal bands I've listened to, but equally I've listened to certain pop music, and I have
Sure.
listened to certain like emo music, rock music. I've never really limited myself to one
Sure.
specific genre. And I quite like that because when I'm listening to music, I don't just sit there and go, oh, this is a nice tune. I really sort of listen into lots of different aspects of that, and sometimes I'll sit there and sort of play around with it in my head, and maybe sort of think, would this work with a different tune? Would it work better with an acoustic? Or I wonder how it would sound if it was like swing music,
Right.
and I regularly will just randomly start singing a song to a different melody just to sort of see how it would change.
Yeah.
So but I quite like that. I like the fact that I listen to all these different genres, and I also find it funny sometimes where like I'll turn up and I'll mention something about Metallica, for example, and how certain songs that they've done actually teach about certain areas of the Bible or about
Right.
Judaism and stuff like that. And then people will see me sort of wearing
Yeah.
like this, for example, or wearing a pretty dress, or all these sort of things, and go, this is not, I would not picture this look with
Right.
these bands,
Yeah.
So yeah, it can be quite fun, and it's always a good conversation starter, I find.
Yeah. I find it ironic that you mentioned that, because there is a band called Postmodern Jukebox. I
Oh,
don't know if
really?
they do swing in jazz to like hard rock and heavy metal songs.
Do
So
they
they,
really?
yes, it's a very unique thing. They
Wow.
do a really good cover of Radiohead's "Creep," and they do like a jazz swing type of thing to it. So it's very unique and eclectic. So it's like the exact opposite of like Me First and the Gimme Gimmes, who do
Yeah.
like punk ska versions of like all the like old school stuff. They
Yeah.
take like heavy songs and they put like a swing jazz ensemble to it. So it's pretty cool. Postmodern Jukebox is a good one to check out if you
Yeah, I'm
are.
gonna have to. I'm just trying to imagine if any other bands I do that. I'm just trying to imagine, if I don't know, maybe Cradle of Filth, if they ever sang Twinkle Twinkle Little Star or
Yeah,
something.
right. They could
You
do it.
know.
If anybody could do it, Danny could do it. That's they're
Yeah.
pretty eclectic. If you've never, Cradle Filth is one of my favorite bands, right? And it's very weird because I've seen them a bunch of times,
Hmm.
and every time they open, they always pick really good opening bands. And that's the one thing like I love about Cradle of Filth is that like it seems to be that they are very hands-on on who they bring on tour with them.
Yeah.
And I found one of my favorite bands now opened for Cradle of Filth in it was either 99 or 2000,
Mm.
and it was God Forbid. And
Oh, right.
they are like a hardcore heavy band,
Mm.
and they opened for Cradle and they were awesome. And every time I've seen Cradle, which is four times on their own and
Yeah.
like three or four times on festivals,
Yeah.
they always seem to have good opening bands, right? They had
Yeah.
Hypocrisy one time, they had Children
Hmm.
of Bodom one time. They always just seem to have really good opening acts for them. Where a
Yeah.
lot of bands just kind of are like the label says, well, this band's going to go on tour with you. And they're like, fine, whatever, like, no big
Yeah.
deal. But like Cradle seems to be like one of the few bands that always has good opening acts. Like they're never like dull.
Yeah.
They're high energy, and then Cradle comes on and just rocks, right? So, you
Yeah.
know, and now they've gotten to the point where it's almost Rammstein esque, right? Where like they have
Hmm.
the girls dancing in the gothic and it's all the blood. And, Danny does the thing with the drill where he wears the chest plate and it sparks all over, right? So they kind of really embellish their stage presence as opposed to just being a black metal band and just playing
Yeah.
hard and fast with spikes and corpse paint. Now
Mm.
it's like they're like the upper echelon of like black metal band, and they've gotten so good that they just kind of now they're not even recognized as a black metal band anymore. They're just kind of like a
Yeah.
hard rock heavy metal band, which again a lot of has to do with Bam Margera, right? Because Bam kind of had them on the show Viva La Bam. Hit them and him are like the two bands that kind of stuck out on the show out of all
Yeah.
the other ones they had. But like they introduced Cradle Filth to a lot of people that didn't know Cradle Filth before Cradle Filth was like they were always one of my favorite bands. And this is going all the way back to like Dusk and Her Embrace and Vampire Evil Made Flesh. Like those were like awesome albums that I had way back in the day, long
Yeah.
before all the other bands that I got into. So Cradle's always kind of had a special place for me. They're one of my favorite bands to go see live, but
Mm.
they always put on good shows. And shout out to Nick Barker, who was in Cradle Filth for a long time, is one of the best metal drummers out there. He's played with
Mm.
probably 100 other bands now, but he was the original Cradle Filth drummer, and that guy was just on another level. So
Yeah. Yeah.
kudos to Nick
Absolutely.
Barker and all the bands he's been in, from Brujeria to Demu to all the other ones. He's kind of like the in the metal world. I don't know if you're a sports fan, but he's
Mm.
kind of like the Babe Ruth of the metal world, right? He played with
Yeah.
Cradle for all those years. He left Cradle and he joined Demu, and it was kind of like he went from the to the Red Sox to the Yankees, right? Like that was
Yeah. It's
kind of
like
the
a
curse
complete
of
180 there.
yeah. And so it was he played with Cradle of Filth for all those years and was on all their good albums. And he left Cradle and he went to Demu and he kind of drummed for Demu, and it was kind of like he left one of the best black metal bands to go with probably the second best black metal band. And at that time, Demu was on their way up. But yeah, Nick Barker, awesome drummer. So total
Yeah.
tangent, but kudos to Nick for doing that. He's
No,
good
he
good
is, and
drummer.
he has a lot of variety as well, which I think is what has kept him going for so long, or at the very least contributed to it.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't limit himself to just one particular thing. He always
No,
sits there
he's
and
all
goes,
over the
"Oh, okay,
place.
what
He's
else can
he's
I
a
do?"
very
Yeah,
good drummer. He drums in a lot of metal bands and a lot of hard rock bands, and he's very good at his craft. And he's kind of like the Dave Lombardo of the black metal world, where he could play with a different bunch of bands and always sounds good. He's very very talented.
yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that. He's
Yeah.
very, very good.
So moving back to Bloodstock, right? Are you with the bands that are selected?
Yeah.
Do you have any interaction with them, or are they kind of like, is that a different job, or do you see that, do you get to go to the show, do you get to go behind the scenes, do you get to like interact with them, or are you just kind of like, I don't want to like bite off more than I could chew if you can't talk about it, but like I'm just kind of interested if you're able to interact with any of them.
Yeah, so I can't really go into that too much at the minute. I don't really know what my shift pattern's going to
Sure.
be, but I'm happy to sort of talk a little more in depth after the festival. But I do know that there will be lots of different types of things that I will be doing. I know I've got to turn up a couple of days before the event actually
Okay.
starts, because I've got to help in sort of setting up things. And there's a bunch of training I'm going to have to do hands-on as well when I arrive.
Sure.
And then I'll get allocated certain roles and certain responsibilities that they'll want me to participate in. But I won't find out exactly what my shift pattern is until I get there. And they said that the reason for that is because people who have said worked the festival before will figure out when the best
Sure.
shifts are, and naturally they'll be like, oh, I want that shift, or I want to
Right.
work with my friend and I want to be able to do this, which is, again, it's completely understandable. If you have your friends that you want to sort of
Sure.
work with, that's understandable. But I think it's just they want to make it as fair as they possibly can, and they want to
Yeah.
wait until everyone's arrived, and take into account if people are unwell or something's happened that means they're unable to attend, for example, because you've got to think about those things as well. So it does seem like it's more logical step to wait up until people have turned up, and then you go, right, okay, so this is who we
Right.
have. These are what your skill sets, these are what you have done before, this is what you haven't done, and sort of work from there.
Awesome. Now, obviously, we're going to talk again after the festival to get your experience and what happens, and you'll be able to give us a little bit more insight on it. Do you know the bands that are on it? Like, do they put that out in advance? Are they already starting to do promo for it? Or is that something that like kind of happens as they add on bands? Is that
Yeah, there's been a few bands that have already been confirmed as participating. Trivium is going to be headlining on the Friday, which is quite exciting. They've been
sure?
around for a really long time as
Yeah,
well.
Trivium's awesome.
Yeah, so there's quite a few bands that have already been confirmed, and if you were to go onto the Bloodstock website, they're updating them all sort of as time sort of goes on as well. But yeah, there's a whole different hosts that have confirmed, and there's more and more names that are going to be added. And as I said, the overall winner of Metal to the Masses also gets to perform at Bloodstock, so we know at least one of them will be.
Right.
And there's some that I think might be performing, but I don't really want to say who. I've got sort of
Sure.
like
No,
some
no, no.
ideas in
Well,
my
yeah,
head
we don't want
that
to.
they
Yeah.
might be, but I'm just like, well, I'm either correct and therefore they don't want to announce it yet, or not. But I thought, yeah, I'm
Right.
looking. There's a couple that I really hope will be there, but I'm
Yeah.
keeping my fingers crossed.
So
But we shall
shout out to
see.
Trivium, Matt Heffy. Actually, I just got his new album, the Ibakari, which is the
Hmm.
samurai stuff he's been doing. Where so
Yeah,
he's kind of found his roots in the thing. Awesome album. So Trivium's awesome. They're one of, I've seen Trivium 3 times. They're a great band live, and they deserve to be headlining because they are phenomenal. Before we wrap up on something, I just want to get your opinion on it, and it doesn't really have to do with Bloodstock, but
okay.
obviously Black Sabbath is going on their last tour, right? And Ozzy and the guys are getting
Yes.
back
I
together.
mean, they say that, but you never know. They
How
might
did
not. They might
right?
do another one.
How since you're there and you get to experience it because a lot of people from all over the world are going to this, right?
Hmm.
The bands that are on this bill are the biggest names in the world, right? Your Panteras, your Zakk Wylde, your Lamb of Gods, your Metallicas, Guns N'
Yeah.
Roses just signed to it, right? So all these bands that are going to be playing and the hundreds of other bands that aren't playing that are still going to be there to see Sabbath for one last time. How is like the UK handling it for in terms of like the size and volume of it? And how do you feel about the outrageous ticket prices? Because it's like 10 grand USD to get there.
Yeah, it's awful. Ticket prices have been going up and up and up. In rise with inflation, of course. And I understand to a point you want to make sure that the performers get paid well, and you want to make sure that,
Right.
the staff will get paid well, and things are just going up in sort of every area. I think largely that also has to do with a lot of jobs and not um paying a high enough wage for people to live on. So because many people, they hardly have any money at the end of the month once all their bills come out,
Right.
suddenly the having disposable income is few and far between. So in order to now save to do something they really want to do, it can take 3 to 4 times longer. And then a lot of the time, if it's something specific with a specific date, so for example, to go to a music gig, to go and see Black Sabbath, where you go, well, I need the money by then. A lot of it, I think, is down to frustration and anger
Yeah.
of, actually, this is so much money, and my bills are say
Sure.
2.5 grand, or
Right.
my
Because it's
rent is this or whatever. And I think that does boil down to it a lot. But yeah, I do agree. There's certain websites as well that add on additional fees, which doesn't help. So they'll
Yeah,
do the fee of the ticket and then the standing fee and then the just what the hell fee and let's add on another fee
right.
and yeah,
Yeah, I was just curious because obviously, with you being over there and
Mm,
getting to see it firsthand, you don't have to travel very far to get there, right? Versus somebody from the United
true.
States has to get an international flight to
Yes.
fly over there, to book a hotel, to get,
Hmm.
like, logistically speaking, if you're in, Europe, you're obviously closer than if you are in the Asian community, in Indochina or the US and Canada and Mexico, because
Yeah.
it's an international flight, and those are a couple $1,000 plus
Yeah.
booking a hotel and then getting the ticket, which is, I mean, it would cost the average American, if they wanted to see that show, probably $10,000
Yeah.
on the very normal end of things. Obviously, if you want to travel first class and get a better hotel and get a better ticket, you're probably talking $20,000 just to see Black Sabbath in the UK one last time if you're a fan.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, and it is a huge amount of money. I mean, I'm thankful that I'm in the UK, and obviously, if a band is playing it, it's that little bit easier, of course. But trains, the cost of getting a train is really
Sure.
expensive nowadays. And then you've got to think some of these festivals, when you get, say, off of the train station, for example, it's not on your doorstep. So then you'll have to either get a bus or potentially a taxi to be able to get from the train
Right.
station. This is if you obviously can't drive or you don't have access to a car.
Sure.
Running a car is also very expensive. Even buying a second-hand car is now incredibly expensive. And all of the things that you need to do to maintain it.
Yeah.
There are many people who are having to give up their cars because even though they're working full time, the cost of their bills plus the cost of running a car is too much. So then they end up thinking, well, I need to get rid of the car, but then how am I going to get to work? And then I'm going to have to pay for all this. And is there a way that I can work from home half the time? And then a lot of companies are then saying, no, no, we can't do the work from home thing. We
Right.
want you back in the office. It's just sort of like a vicious circle, I think, for a lot
Sure.
of people. But yeah, I do agree that the cost of everything has been going up,
Yeah.
you know, across all avenues, basically, apart from wages.
Right.
Apart from wages. But yeah, the cost of living is hitting everyone pretty hard, I think. Unless you're in the
Sure.
top 1%,
Right.
and you're multimillionaire, you're gonna be
That
struggling.
that's true, right? So as we're wrapping things up for today, right? Obviously, we're gonna have you back on in a couple months after Bloodstock. We'll talk about the experience, and you can give us the lowdown on that. Tell everybody where they could find you if you want to be, that person on social media. If you want people to follow you, and then if there's anybody you want to shout out, I know you mentioned a few bands earlier. This is your time to give them their place in the sun, as they say.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, it's Athena Warrior Queen. That's what my tag is on TikTok and Instagram. Um, so yeah, if anyone does want to follow, ask any questions, that's absolutely fine. I've spoken to quite a few different bands through TikTok because that's the place that a lot of bands tend to use because it's all very musically based. And that's fine. I mean, I know we spoke about From Tyranny. They do indeed have a TikTok page and other social media, and they're on Spotify as well for all the people that like to stream in and listen
Hmm.
to music. As are Cherry Dead. Cherry Dead are on TikTok. They're on all the streaming platforms. I think I mentioned it quite a few people actually. Yeah. Yeah, the 500. Brilliant. If you've not heard of the 500 before, I do highly recommend that you give them a listen. I've had some of their songs stuck in my head for the last couple of weeks. To be honest, to the point where
Yeah,
my
I haven't heard of them,
7-year-old has
so now
ended
I'm gonna
up
I'm gonna
singing
check
it.
them out. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I can't remember what it's called now, but it's one of the where they go, "Where is your empathy?" That one, but
okay.
not like that because it's not a pop song; it's a
Right,
metalcore
right.
song. But so it's got that lyric in it, and that's been in my head on a loop the past few days. I'm like, "Where is your empathy?" Great. Of all the
Yeah,
lyrics, yes. Where's your empathy, mate? Where's your empathy? But yeah, and Pulse I think all of the bands I've actually mentioned today have all got
yeah.
TikTok and forms of social media.
Awesome.
So yeah, just give them all a check out and
Yeah, I'm
stream
gonna.
all their music.
Yeah. I'll tag them all in the video and look at it and encourage everybody else to do that too. And as we're starting to wind down, I just want to say congratulations on getting the gig for Bloodstock. Right, that's
Oh,
super
thank you.
awesome. I'm super happy for you and proud of you that you're doing that. And it seems like it's going to be a great experience for you. And I'm so happy that we got to talk about that. And I'm really excited to find out what happened, right? Like
Yeah,
the
I'm
second
too. I'm a
part two,
bundle of
right?
nerves.
Like
I
that's
mean,
kind of awesome because, you know, obviously it's a big festival and you're probably really excited to get in the mix. And I know that there's a lot of things that you can't talk about now, but when it's
yeah,
over, I'd love to get the lowdown on what happened and who you met and who you thought was cool and who you interacted with. Like, so I'm super
yeah, I'm
stoked
sure
for
I'll
you.
meet
Like,
lots
I'm
of
excited
people.
that you get to do this.
Me too, and I'm sure I'll get to meet, you know, some of the other bands that I've conversed with as well. I'm fingers crossed they've got tickets anyway.
Sure.
To be honest, I really hope that
Right.
they manage to get their tickets early because I don't even know if there's any left. They might have all sold out. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and I'm sure I'll get to meet lots of people and learn some new things. And yeah, I can't wait to tell you all about it afterwards.
Awesome. So yeah, we'll have you soon. So Athena, thank you for being a guest on the One Fun Guy podcast. I really appreciated it. You are awesome. I will link everything up, guys. So if you follow me on the One Fun Guy podcast all over every social media platform, this video was live on Facebook as we are now. It's going to be up on YouTube, so I'll drop the link later. I'm going to do some editing, and then we'll go from there. So thank you, Athena, for being a fantastic guest, and we look forward to hearing from you soon.
Yes, and thank you very much to you.
All
Bye.
right. Bye, everybody.